If you were a soup, what kind of soup would you be?
A soup.
It's a soup.
I thought I'd had all the difficult questions.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this Q&A stream for Imperator. With me today, Peter Nicholson, our content designer on the team. How are you doing, Peter?
I'm very well, thank you.
And first of all, thank you so much for your participation within the form that was put up on social media. There were tons and tons of responses. We've taken a look at them, selected a few of them, and we're going to answer them now. So just a bit of information. We're going to focus on answering most of the only questions that are related to Cicero, mostly. So just here's a fair warning, and we'll see where we end up once we have gone through all the questions. If we have still a few minutes left, we'll just pick a few from the chat, or else we will just start playing a bit if we happen to speedrun through the questions. Peter, are you ready?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, question number 1. When working on new features, have you taken into consideration factions that start with very little land pops, but are still fairly popular? Example, Ulutia, Sparta, Crete, Macedon, etc.
I mean, definitely. We look at the nations people play.
Mm-hmm.
This is incredibly important to us when deciding what we're going to focus on, I'd say. Regarding content for upcoming updates, patches, and particularly with events that we want to add to DLCs or content that we're adding. Like, for instance, Carthage in the 1.2 update has received a fair few additional events,
All right.
Additional DHEs, dynamic historical events, because people play Carthage. We realised from having a look at the data we've got that people love playing Carthage, they love playing Rome. And there's various other particularly popular nations. The question, I believe, pointed out that Ulutia, Sparta, Crete, these are all really popular places. So definitely, we take into consideration all of those things.
All right, cool. Thanks for the answer. Second question. What are your thoughts on the current user interface, and do you have any significant plans to improve it?
So the user interface is something that we've thought about a lot, I think, over the course of development. And we've had a lot of feedback on creating interface that people find easy to use, how they use it. And we're doing a lot of consideration, I think, in how we display information.
All right.
Particularly in the 1.2 Cicero update. Let's jump into the game, have a look
So
around.
here we can see already that there have been a few changes just in the provincial layouts.
Absolutely. This is something that we took a look at in the 1.1 update, the Pompeii update. We reworked how the province UI displayed a lot of information. We've had a look recently at the POPs view. This is a slightly older build, so I'm not able to show you that. But yes, in short, we are thinking a lot about the UI and the UX and how people interact with the user interface, and we're aiming to work on this a lot.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously you can, like, for instance, here, if there's too much info, you can minimize the tab where you can see the leader.
You can.
And the provinces and so on and so forth, so you can just focus on the city on which you are.
Yeah, you can get the information that you need to know.
Absolutely. All right. And this is also part of... Have we made other changes within the Cicero beta when it comes to the top bar UI? Yes.
Not a great deal of them, but you'll notice that there are a lot of things missing here, and I think we'll cover this a little bit more.
Okay.
The power rework is one of the larger features of the Cicero update. We've removed military power, oratory power, civic power, and religious power, and you'll notice they're missing from the top bar. Instead, we've got this political influence resource, which is a sort of much more dynamic resource, a lot more focused, though, at the same time, on the political stage of your country. So you will earn this through talking to your advisors. Where are they? Here we go. These are your advisors, your officers, and their loyalty dictates how much political influence you get.
Yeah.
Exactly. So having a good loyal cabinet is going to provide you with more political influence, and you'll be using this to interact on a political level with your country, for instance, changing laws, changing governor policies, such things.
And I think we're going to tackle that later on with a few
Indeed.
questions that are focused on that. So, is there going to be any unit AI improvement?
I'd say AI improvement is always an ongoing thing. We are aiming to do what we can regarding unit AI improvement. I will say that the AI in the Cicero update is, in my view, better than it's ever been.
Okay.
It's looking good.
If Peter says it, it must be good. No, true. Are we going to have more different troops and buildings in Imperator?
Well, buildings, let's have a look. So, one of the larger features in 1.2 is that we're adding a huge number of buildings. A lot of them focused on cities, and some of them focused on the other administrative unit we've got, which are settlements.
Okay. How many buildings in total?
I believe we've added 12 or 13 new building types.
I thought it was actually a bit more. I thought it was like 16 or something. So
it may well be. I forget the exact number, but we've added a huge number of building types.
Okay.
Which you can find in the Cicero beta. You can opt in, have a look around, try them out. And not only are these just more of the same, these have unique purposes. So settlement buildings are there to specialize your settlements. If you have a lot of slaves in one of your settlements, then you might want to build one of several buildings. You could build a mine and try and pull more out of the...
so try to cash in on the fact that you have a lot of slaves within said settlement.
You'll be producing more trade goods. You can build a farm if you have a particular type of trade good and and enhance your food production. You can go all in on money and have a slave output building, or you can specialize it in one of various other ways, such as the Provincial Legation, which is designed to sort of funnel the pops that are growing in that settlement into your cities by decreasing the time it takes them to migrate.
Okay. That was a lot of information to process at the same time. And yeah, just like Peter mentioned, if you guys want to try out the Cicero update that is going to come out in the coming weeks, what you can do is go on Steam and you can opt in by right-clicking on Imperator, Properties, Betas, and logging into the 1.2 beta.
Indeed.
So there you go. If you want to go and try it for yourself and see the changes that we've made so far, feel free to do so, and feel free to drop us a line of feedback on the forums or on social media. We'll be very eager to see what you think of it. So, next question. Will there be more personal events added that are similar to Crusader Kings 2?
This is quite a hard one to answer, because the focus for Imperator is not only on your characters. They're a very important part of the game, but the overarching direction that we're trying to take things is that of the nation state. You are playing your government. You are playing the spirit of your nation. In Rome, you might start out as the Roman Republic. That's who you are.
Yeah.
What is happening to your characters is incredibly important to the game and to your playthrough. And yes, absolutely, we'll be trying to portray this in a much more personalized way.
Okay.
But you are not playing your ruler.
So, if I might ask, feel free to rebuke that, by the way, will we see more chain of events related to your relationship with these characters or not? Is that the kind of stuff
Absolutely.
we're looking into?
Over time, we absolutely aim on increasing.
Okay, super
those.
interesting. Thank you. Next question, how large is the team working on Imperator?
This is quite hard to answer. The core development team, I would say, is about 15
Something
people,
like that?
Something like that, 10, 15 people. But we have reliance and relationships with all sorts of people outside of the core development team.
Yeah, I'd say a good 12, 15 people on a daily basis just working up there. Yeah. So, next question. Will there be more ways to gain political power or influence political power gain in the future? That's an oddly phrased one.
Yeah, now I think we're fairly happy with the way that you gain political power right now. It puts increased reliance on your important characters. So
you were saying characters that are actually in offices that are
Indeed.
loyal to you, this affects your political influence.
Yeah, it increases your interaction with these important people. I'd say it makes you care about them a lot more, care about their loyalty. Whether we expand on uses of political influence, that's certainly an option. But we're happy with the way it's turned out in terms of balance. What you use political influence for is a lot more focused. You'll be using it mostly for political purposes. It's meant to represent that feeling of backroom dealings and the weight that you carry.
I'm actually thinking back on when we released Imperator. We did not include that loyalty dimension to the officers.
No,
Did it
we
impact
didn't.
at all? No, that's what I thought. For a second, I thought that we had that the loyalty impacted the bonuses that were given by each of them, but no, that was actually their traits, martial and so on and so forth. So there we go. Sorry about that. So next question. Are there any plans on making geographical culture types for cities change depending on the dominant culture type?
This is actually a question that we've received a lot.
A lot.
This is clearly something that people think very strongly about.
Yes.
That isn't planned for 1.2, I would say. But given the strength of opinion on this one, it's something that we may take a look at in future.
Okay, good to know. As much as I enjoy some of the... Not me, of course, the person writing the question, and thank you for submitting. As much as I enjoy some of the heritages in the game, I noticed that a lot of time a civil war may break out in Egypt or Moria, yet their heritages also remain the same, i.e. heritage of Ptolemaios, despite the families of which these heritages were named after being completely wiped out, if the rebel win. Are there any plans for making heritages more dynamic?
That's an interesting question. Heritages, to me, are something that a nation has evolved from. It may be something that they disagree with, but it is the historical situation from which they've evolved. In the case of Egypt, Egypt at the start of the game is ruled by Ptolemy himself and has the heritage of Ptolemaios. If they were to have a civil war, would that heritage be invalidated? I'm not sure.
Not necessarily.
It's something we can think about in future, but for now, that won't be changing.
Okay, cool. Are there any plans to represent Garamantine tribes differently than spawning hordes from the Libyan deserts?
Another good one, actually. This is a tricky one. I think very early on in the...
we wanted to
include the Garamantine tribes, and indeed we had a whole selection of locations all the way down here.
Right. Now I remember.
Very early on in development, and we decided to cut those in the end because in the end it just wasn't fun. It ended up similar to, I think, over here in the Nile. You'd end up with these very long corridors where you could send troops, but inevitably they would meet enemies or whatever on the way back, and it just didn't strike the right balance.
All right.
I think.
Fair enough.
We may revisit it at some point.
Oh, okay. Cool. Good to know. Are there any plans for a greater distinction between province and cities? Some were more focused on agriculture and settled activities, other on animal husbandry and nomadism. So
I'll take the first bit of that.
Yeah.
So, plans for a greater distinction between provinces and cities. Well, as I've said before, we are splitting what you call provinces or cities here into settlements and cities. We also have a third category, metropolis. Metropolises. You have to correct me if I'm wrong.
Metropolis. I don't know how you put it in plural.
No, me neither. That, I think, is as far as we're going for 1.2, but the differences between those are quite distinct. Your settlements will be your production facilities. They will be where you produce your food, your trade goods, where you'll be making money out of slave estates, that sort of thing. Your cities, that's generally where you will keep your citizens and your freemen. They'll be producing the manpower research for your realm. So now they have these distinct purposes, and I think that is a game balance that I'm much happier with. Metropolis is more of a prestige category, and that will appear or become available to you once you have a city that's reached this certain stature. You can upgrade it to a metropolis. It'll receive certain bonuses to citizens, freemen, but it'll cost you in the long run.
Cool. What's exactly the distinction when it comes to bonuses between cities and metropolises? Is it just like added bonuses for metropolises?
There will be bonuses for metropolis.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But cities and metropoli will have a harder time in producing trade goods.
Gotcha.
They're not so much production focused, they're more consumption focused. And definitely the settlements will remain where you want to be producing your trade goods.
All right. Question number 12. Where do you find motivation to keep working on a project that has faced so much criticism? And just to be clear, I applaud you for that. You've burnt out far easier things. That's nice.
It is nice to see that
and
recognized, I think.
That's a very tough question.
It is a tough question, and I'll be honest with you, I love the game. I think it has wonderful potential. I think it's great fun in the 1.2 Cicero update. Try it out for yourselves, I think, on that regard. But where do I find the motivation to keep working on it? Because I can see what it is. I get so much enjoyment out of playing it, and I can see where it's going, and I like where it's going.
Thank you, Peter, for that answer. That wasn't a super easy question, I must say. What's your favorite story moment from the time period? Is it possible to recreate an Imperator?
Ooh. So many options. There are so many stories from the Hellenistic world and outside, but I'll choose one that isn't necessarily related to the Hellenistic world, per se. I think I like particularly the story of the Galatians.
Right.
And this was a group of Celtic tribes that sort of coalesced at some point around 280, 290 BC from various locations, and the theories are that they came from somewhere down here up to somewhere up here, and migrated all the way down into modern Greece and further on into the Balkans, came through Thrace and crossed over into Anatolia and settled in Galatia, which, I'm testing my geography now. There we go, province of Galatia, somewhere around here, and made themselves a new home in the middle of the kingdoms of the Greeks, basically. And this became known as Galatia, and the people were the Galatians. And I find it just fascinating that these groups of people could uproot themselves and move all the way down. And yes, you can do this in Imperator. I think we even have an achievement for this.
Do we now?
I
wasn't
believe
even aware.
so. I'm not going to check on stream, but you
can
find
check
out for yourself.
Exactly.
It will have been in the game since release if it is, so I would love to see some people having completed that. I love seeing on Reddit, on the forums, how people have been doing achievements. I think the Argead Empire reunification is a very popular one, understandably, but I haven't seen anybody post any screenshots of having formed Galatia.
Well, there you go.
So there's your challenge, chat.
Challenge for the weekend. There you go.
Indeed. Form Galatia and show me, and I'll be very happy.
Any plans for allowing other non-Hellenic powers to use the biggest ships, let's say a great power status and some late game technology?
Not really. And the justification for that, from my perspective, is that this almost arms race that occurred between the Diadochi and the great kings of the time was just that. It was this race to show off not necessarily their military capability, but just that they could construct these wonderful, prestigious ships that were in some cases absolutely vast, incomprehensibly vast in some cases. There is a rumour, story, I'm not sure how true it is, that one of these was built so large that it couldn't even move. It was gigantic. But this was very specifically done by the Greek kings, I think. And what we have done in 1.2 is updated the Levantine military traditions to allow Egypt to do this. Straight off the bat. Other than that, we've got no plans of allowing it any further.
Or pushing
I don't think.
it. Gotcha. No. All right. Is it possible to speed up tribe to monarchy conversion in the new update?
So this is something that I took a look at specifically whilst rebalancing the various law systems. Let's find a tribal nation. No, we can't. Never mind. The law systems were totally overhauled, so each now has their individual path. The tribal system gives you a choice of two. You can either go the decentralized route or the centralized route. And it definitely starts off slower. The centralized route takes you towards forming a republic, forming a monarchy perhaps, and then going from there. It felt, I think, in vanilla that this was something that if you focused on, you could get it done really rather quickly.
That is true.
I think we managed it in about 15 years at one point, which just felt wrong to me. So yes, we have made it slower, but you will find that once you've started down that path of centralization, it speeds up a lot towards the end. So whilst it takes you a while to get going,
it's more a form of a ramp up rather than just shooting for it within 15, 20 years.
It can take you 50 to 80 years, I'd say.
All right. Which is fair. Political transformation didn't occur. Well, in some instances, of course, they did occur on the flick of a finger, but true. Let's see. Are you planning or hoping to develop the political influence system even further in the future?
I'd say we're happy with the way it's turned out, but I'm not ruling out adding some additional.
So potentially to a later date, adding a few mechanics here and there that
Perhaps.
could affect. Okay,
We'll see.
cool. Is there any plan to make character interaction more engaging? Not CK2 levels, but it would be great to delve a bit more into that aspect of how ancient societies worked.
I think so. The focus for the 1.2 update has been very much on the core systems involved with strategic gameplay. So looking at cities and pops and migration. We've worked a lot on culture conversion and having things happen over time. We've added a little bit to characters. You'll find that in republics there are some more government interactions, and these involve your characters a lot more. That is something that I think we can definitely capitalize on in future.
All right. Thank you for your answer, Peter. Let's see. What can we ask you then? What kind of new events will be introduced in Cicero?
I think we touched on this briefly, but we've added quite a lot of events for Rome.
With Carthage too.
We've focused on Carthage and the surrounding sort of Mediterranean states. There have been a whole variety added elsewhere, so it's really quite hard to go into a list of these, but there are plenty.
Fair enough. Will more of the world ever be open for colonization, such as the rest of the Baltic coastline?
Watch this space. You may be happy.
Come again?
That's all I'll say right now.
Okay, fine. Fine. Intriguing. So, let's break away from serious questions for a second. If you were a soup, what kind of soup would you be?
A soup.
Yes, a soup.
I thought I'd had all the difficult questions. If I was a soup, well, I'm not a soup, but if I was a soup, I would be carrot and potato soup. It sounds simple, but there is nothing more that you want on a cold winter's day than coming home to a carrot and potato soup with mustard seeds. I think if you want to spice it up,
if you want to be adventurous a bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
So there's your. What soup would you be, Rod?
Wow, that's a good question. Let me see. I guess, I don't know. I'd say I'm a bit of a French snobs on the side. For some reason, I picture myself as
For some reason.
I think I'd picture myself as an asparagus velouté.
Oof.
Something like that.
Excellent choice. Excellent choice.
Yes.
I thought you were going to say straight up wine, but I guess
Wine?
that's not a soup.
No.
Why not?
Get this. I don't like wine. Plot twist, I know, right? Who would have thought? Let's go back to more serious stuff. Question 21. Great progress was made on this update, but I saw almost nothing being said about politics. Are there any plans to improve that aspect of the game?
So I think we touched on this already.
Yes, I think so too.
So we'll move on there.
Okay, let's see. 765 hours played so far. Kudos to you.
I salute you.
I hope you like my question as much as your game, as I enjoy your game. Well, yeah. So, I like to play subject states and liberate my nation. Being able to interact with other subject states of the same overlord to have them possibly join me in war would be really cool. Is this something you have in store?
I won't say much about that, but what I will say is questions like this are fantastic to get. And that's on the forums, on Reddit, because this gives me ideas. And absolutely, playing subject states, playing Athens, for example, that starts as a subject of Phrygia, it would be fantastic to delve a bit more into depth about what we want to do there and perhaps expand the options as far as that's concerned. But I would say if you have questions like this, or even if you have suggestions, take to the forums.
Yes.
Ping me if you can, or if you want to, or just leave it on Reddit. I try and read everything that appears there where possible. I will read them, guaranteed.
Yes.
So drop me a line.
You are indeed very, very active on the forum, and I think this goes also for the whole of the dev team when it comes to suggestions, threads, or even when it comes to criticism. We read basically everything.
Indeed.
I think both on the marketing side and on the dev side of things, we try to gather as much feedback as we can, see where we can go. Sometimes, sure, visions collide and don't align between fans and
as always,
studio, but we try to gather feedback as much as we can.
Absolutely, and part of running 1.2 as this open beta, and we've had fantastic feedback from players.
Yeah.
It's been immensely helpful, and I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for having put so much of your time into testing and coming up with ideas. I'm not sure we'd have done this without you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. So, next question. Please tell me if you plan to expand the list of buildings. I cannot imagine antiquity without theatre, temples, baths, libraries, and more.
Well, you will be pleased to hear that theatres, temples, libraries... Do we have baths? I can't remember off the top of my head.
I'm not sure
we have all of these in the 1.2 Cicero update.
Go and
you will be able to find all of those buildings and more, as you have asked for, and you'll be able to use them all. So go try it out.
Grand.
If you want more, goodness knows.
Will you add plagues or sanitation stuff?
Sanitation stuff. Well, to me, we have... Let's find a province.
Hand sanitizer invention.
We have population capacity, and to me, population capacity represents at least an aspect of sanitation.
How so?
We have now the food system in the game.
True.
And these systems work together, I think, to represent the difficulties that there were in supplying burgeoning population centres with what they needed to survive.
Do you think you can explain the food system really quickly?
Really quickly, absolutely.
If that's possible.
Let's see what I can do. So, you have province food level here. Now, this is on the entire level of the province. So if I was to zoom down and look at this province, here it has a food capacity of 1,000. And you'll find that each individual settlement, each territory, produces some food. And also that pops within each settlement consume food. So you may start the game at a point where you're getting by, your monthly food is ticking up a little bit, and you can get by.
Yeah.
Once you start growing, once more pops are moving to your settlements, your cities, in any given area, they will start to eat more and more food. You'll have to supply them with food. Now, you can either do that by producing it, using your settlements, building farms, that sort of thing.
And using your population to that
Indeed.
end.
Or you can import
True.
various trade goods. For instance, where have we got some grain? I know where there's some grain.
So I think it's livestock, grain, fish.
There we go. So we've got food coming into the province of Latium, being imported or created there. And this is a way of feeding your territories.
All right.
And this ties into the population capacity, which I think partially represents at least the idea of sanitation and that sort of system. And you build aqueducts to increase your population capacity. Again, this is more like sanitation, I would say. And I think these systems work very nicely in parallel with each other to produce this interesting system of supply.
All right. But you have deflected half of the question. What about plagues?
What about plagues?
This is a question that interests me deeply.
Is it really?
No. Well, actually, I kind of do like the dimension of illnesses.
It's an interesting idea.
Games.
I will say that.
All right. Good to know. I have noted that only characters who have some income from employment or holdings have ambitions, and the unemployed ones never get any, except prisoners who can sometimes try to escape prison. Is this a bug or working as designed?
So, well observed. That's very interesting observation, I'd say. And yes, this is intentional. This is working as designed. So the ambitions, you'll notice a lot of characters have ambitions at the start of the game. Let's find somebody. You'll notice that Mr. Sempronius Sophus, here he is siphoning funds from the National Treasury, as you do in Rome.
Yeah.
He has this ambition because he has power base. And you'll find that characters that have some power base, that are considered to be powerful enough to have an effect on your nation, they're the ones that tend to have ambitions.
All right.
And you'll find that less important characters without power base or with very low power base, they're unlikely to be picking up these ambitions.
Makes sense.
This is partly a technical limitation.
All right.
And partly because we don't want to draw attention to all of the characters in the game at once. There are, I think, upwards of 25,000 or so.
So you want to narrow it down and focus on some essential ones, which makes sense. So, 1.2 looks exciting. I'm planning to return to the game. Is there anything you can tell us about plans for 1.3?
That's a sneaky question. I can't give you too much away at this point, but I will say keep your eyes peeled. We'll start... We'll have more dev diaries coming in future, so keep your eyes glued to the forums. You will find out.
All right. Last but not least, will an automatic road building tool be implemented?
Road building? This is one of my favourite features, I think, from Imperator. Automatic road building tool, well, that's what your armies are for.
Pretty much.
I would say. And you'll know that in Rome you can build military roads. We can't because we don't have the technology and we don't have the console.
Such a shame.
Alas, I cannot show it off. But in 1.1 we added, you will remember in release, in vanilla, you had to build roads one tile at a time.
I remember.
It was a little bit tedious at best. So I think one of the best additions to the Pompey patch was the ability to toggle build military roads on an army and simply set it going somewhere.
And there you go.
And it will go off on its merry way, and as long as you have enough gold to be able to produce roads, they will build the road all the way there.
All right. So that's the list of questions we've gathered so far. Perhaps, chat, you have a few questions that you want to ask yourself right now. If not, we can fool around with the game, if you want. What'd you say?
Sure.
Pick the hardest nation.
The hardest nation?
I'm kidding. Please don't.
Well, we're already playing Rome.
Is it really the hardest out?
It is when I'm playing it.
Oh, well, I'm very curious to see how you play it.
Let's find out.
Explain to me, teach me, Peter Sensei. Or Senpai. Not sure.
I wouldn't know. What we can do is have a look at some of the things that we've got.
I think it's interesting if we take a look at what we have added in Cicero and how it could impact a potential playthrough just with Rome. Could be interesting. Wow. We have questions here. What's happening? Oh, well, the release date. You'll have to wait a bit more. So
you will have to wait, I'm afraid, for the release date. But I can give you the following information, and that is that there will be an update to the beta branch coming, fingers crossed, tomorrow. So that's all you have to wait for, an update to the beta branch. So log on, update, subscribe to the beta branch, and you will be receiving a further update to that.
And we'll make sure to relay it as soon as it's live, so you guys can know what's happening there.
Absolutely.
So we have a few questions. Let's see. Would you make more rivers navigable?
That's certainly something we can think about doing. Rivers are interesting. They require quite a lot of research because rivers particularly change quite rapidly in terms of geographical history.
All right.
So we need to do a lot of research into whether these rivers would have been navigable at the time.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what we have now is that the Nile is navigable down to a point. We may extend that in future. We're certainly looking at perhaps a couple of other things in upcoming updates.
And again, unfortunately, we cannot answer on what are the next plans beyond Cicero.
No,
keep your eyes peeled. We'll relay dev diaries on social media. We'll keep you posted with what's coming afterwards.
Indeed.
I mean, we do have the name for it, which has been advertised on our banners.
We do.
Levy.
The Livy update.
Yeah. I pronounced it
You
well.
pronounced it correctly.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, Rod.
Peter scolds me every now and then because I say Levi. Well, it's. I mean,
I believe that's a jeans brand, isn't it?
I can see Alex just
There we
laughing in
go.
his booth. All right. All right. So perhaps we will. Let me check if there is. Are we looking into a spy system? I think this is not the kind of question we will not take.
No, it's the kind of question we won't take this time. Will territories no longer starve so much if they're abandoned?
Oh,
well,
yeah, that was
actually,
a good question.
territory starvation, that's something that that will be coming for you in the next Cicero beta update. There are changes to that system, and I believe I detailed them in one of the previous dev diaries.
Was it the one
possibly
2 weeks
2
ago?
weeks ago?
Yeah.
So
wanna
I'd say
2 weeks
check
ago.
that out, and you'll see exactly what we're planning to do. And if you want to wait for the proper updates, then we will post a changelog alongside the release of the beta update.
Good. Let's see. We have a question coming from Mr. Axis89. Will Germanic tribes grow to be a danger to a Roman player?
I hope so. Now, one of the other aspects that we focused on for the Cicero update is AI. And there have been a lot of improvements to AI, particularly with getting major players to perform well on their own. And so far our testing has shown that it's been pretty damn successful. I'd say Carthage is doing incredibly well in our tests, Rome doing incredibly well. And yes, I think that you'll often find that the German nations, some of the Gallic nations, will become a threat to endgame players as you go on.
So I see a few questions related to population mostly. We have Britty 94-1 saying, will pops move away from zones of wars?
Yes, they will do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this comes with
Occupation
the
will increase.
population simulation
Absolutely, it does. Occupied territories will begin to starve slightly more quickly. They will run out of food. And B, migration speed will increase if you have an occupied territory, and that will start moving away. Pops will begin moving to other territories that are perhaps safer for them or more attractive.
So there was a question also about taking money from enemies.
Yeah, this is something that we have removed in the Cicero update. This was something that was incredibly hard to balance.
Okay.
It was quite often possible to use AI nations as banks, essentially.
Oh,
you can declare war on them and demand vast sums of money, depending on how much they've got, usually for very little risk of your own.
So someone is also asking if we have plans to make armies integrated with food mechanics more, which I think is an interesting question.
That's a possibility, certainly. Armies right now do eat food. You'll find there are some balance changes coming with tomorrow's update. There will be some changes to that. Nothing big, but I'd say they will in general start to eat a little bit more. And it's something we will probably look at in future as well.
So do we have new achievements coming for the new patch?
There are no achievements with this patch. No.
Sorry. Do you see any other question you'd like to address, Peter? Have you seen anything else?
Ooh, let's have a look.
If only I could reach the screen, just so you understand that.
I see.
But silly me.
Limited.
I should have opened the Twitch chat right here.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Silly me. Can't remember how it works. God damn it. It's been such a long while since I've sat on this chair. So let's see. Oh my god, this is odd. Seeing ourselves here. Pop-up chat. There we go.
That's an interesting question. Will the steppes in Russia and north of India be explored as unruly land raiding or something? So, these are really difficult places to do research for.
Why so?
If you go back to 450 AUC or roughly 300 BC, as we are, I mean, a lot of these places were incredibly nomadic cultures. They maybe hadn't developed the written word.
So still oral tradition.
Absolutely.
To pass on knowledge
finding
and so on.
information about who lived there at any given time. The cultures were very fleeting. Or even as far as getting names for locations, cities, settlements, that sort of thing, is incredibly difficult.
Yep.
Not ruling it out. but it is very hard, and it's certainly an interesting part of the research process that we did on the game in the beginning, was finding data surrounding all of this. I think one of our very first dev diaries shows off a little about how we did this research. We have some links to sources we've used. It's quite interesting. I'd check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Do we have any more questions? My God. I'm not used to this anymore. It was so easy. So, do you want... Let's see if we can take this one. In some countries, i.e. North Africa, even small army seems to always take attrition from supplies. Any changes? Is it something we're looking into?
So this is often due to the territory of the location. I think desert always has an implicit attrition modifier. We've tried not to make states or areas in entirety contain only desert.
Mm-hmm.
So there will always, hopefully, be somewhere that you can stand armies without just taking attrition.
So let's see. That's an interesting question. Will there be any system to lock pop promotion?
In a sense. So what you will have now is a system whereby you have pop ratios. So in a city, you will have a desired ratio of pop type versus an actual ratio of pop type.
Gotcha.
And I believe in the beta version you're currently playing, that is not a normalized system. In the beta update you'll receive tomorrow, that system is normalized. Now, without going into what exactly that means, it should be easier to control ratios in your cities if you want to.
All right. Thanks for the answer. Let's see. Any more questions? Naval say I'm not aware of what Swing Prophetic is saying, but naval sailor system going to be added. I am not quite sure to what he is referring to.
Indeed.
Will roads affect trade routes? I think we have had two, three questions about that.
Yeah, I mean, roads affect a variety of things, actually. I think they do affect commerce income to a small extent.
Okay. And let's see, will the new city system where trade goods are not produced as much as in city means that certain trade goods won't be as available on the map, like glass?
I hope not. I think it will still be entirely possible to have these rare sort of city resources be more producible. One part of this is that if you found a city, or if a city is founded by the AI on a tile which produces food, it has a chance, or it will produce something other than food. It will change the trade good, and it will have a chance to produce, for instance, glass or some other
and we had
finished good.
A question on balancing, which is horse archer. Will they be nerfed? It looks like for Tiger King they are a beta P.
I see. Yeah, this is a complaint we've had a lot, actually. Feedback on units is incredibly valuable. It's also one of the hardest things, I think, to get absolutely right. There is rarely a one-size-fits-all solution. We're constantly monitoring what we're doing with unit balance, so we will look into these things.
Are we planning any form of rework when it comes to trade, says Miller Dev?
Nothing to talk about at this stage.
Okay, and we have also another question that is on Bloodlines. Will there be more Bloodlines? Sorry, that question skipped again.
That's probably one we'll avoid.
Okay. Will the Seleucid be buffed?
Will the Seleucids be buffed? Well,
do we really want
powerful.
to? Do we really want to buff them some more? Sure.
The Seleucids are in a very strange position to start with. They're one of these Hellenistic monarchs that have vast swathes of land, but they are essentially foreigners in their own land. There are Persian, a variety of cultures in the land that they possess, and all of this was conquered by Alexander the Great 20-ish years ago. There hasn't been time for sort of full integration or getting used to the scenario yet. Making the Seleucids a bit more stable, yes, I think that is a long-term goal. But do they need buffing? I'm not sure. In the hands of a player, they're pretty capable as a nation.
All right. We have a few more questions. So, army customization, will that be doable? Is it doable?
Possibly one day.
Possibly one day. And yet another question, this time from Briareus. Sending a Nair female or male adventuring might bring him back with an enormous military skill. Some might even reach 29. Is this a bug? Will there be boundaries in bonuses from adventuring?
Let's call that a bug, because I certainly haven't had anyone reach 29. You have a god general right there.
I think it was Stacy during the Death Clash, and also...
well, the adventuring feature, I think, was something that I added for 1.2. But definitely 29 is too high. You absolutely should be able to gain military stats, I think, from sending somebody adventuring. It's a risk. They might never come back. They may die in combat. Who knows? But yes, it shouldn't be that high.
Okay. So let's see if there is another question we want to take. Could the AI of Rome get a buff?
Well, as I say,
we are constantly
focusing on this as part of the 1.2 update. You should find that Rome particularly does a lot better than they've ever done before.
Actually, good question from Dennis. Can you allow road building in subjects?
Interesting question. It's not something I'd considered. Possibly. I'll look into it.
And indeed, Lambert, you are right. It was Goran who played Moria that actually got that mighty general with a 20-ish military skill. Indeed.
And that's another good reason that we play Dev Clashes. We find bugs like this, and that bug we fixed as a result of the Dev Clash.
So we have a question which is more tied to the map. Can we have more of Norway and Sweden to be expanded when it comes to the map?
That's an interesting one, because the more we go north here, the more we have to go north elsewhere.
How so? You mean just generally speaking?
Just generally speaking, I think. It's an interesting area, but it's an area that we know so little about. I will hold my hand up and say a lot of this is very speculative, as some of our more educated forum members have rightly pointed out at various times. There's a couple of really good threads on this, so if you have opinions or ideas, seek them out and unbury them.
Okay. Yes, please, guys. Please do go on the forums if you have any suggestions or details you want to drop or knowledge you have based on books here and there. Go for it. Go on the forums and ask us a few questions. Is there any other questions you want to pick up?
No, I think that's about all we have time for today.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially as we have the Unbenmar Dev Clash coming right up. Am I correct, Alex? I cannot pronounce it correctly. Unbenar. There we go. The Unbenar Dev Clash coming up. Thank you guys so much for all the questions. We'll keep you posted on social media when it comes to the update for the beta.
Indeed,
that will be pushed tomorrow. Thank you so much, Peter, for taking questions both from the form that we published last week and from the chat live. It was fun to see you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.